Let me know if you can't hear me. And feel free to ask questions in the chat as always. Hey, Philip. Let me know if you can hear me. There is a project called the Gateway Browser, which I think if you search around for it, you'll find, I'm pretty sure they have a Twitter account. And that's being run by Calm Red. They seem to be doing some pretty cool stuff there. So that's what I tell everybody to check out, is the Gateway Browser. I haven't heard the latest from Calm, so I don't know where they're at right now, but Calm and Gateway, that's the one I'd be looking at. Good deal. Well, like I said, I'm just going to do some work here. And happy to, not going to explain in detail like I normally would. If I was doing a more, structured stream, I'd be talking about every step I'm taking. I'll do a little bit of sharing what I'm working on, but for the most part, I'm just gonna do some work and get some stuff done. Yeah, I really don't know where he's at with it right now, but I guess if there's an error there, I should just end right away. Yeah, the things I saw with Gateway were really promising. Maybe I log. Working on a command line tool here, so logging makes sense. One of the tools will be a nice little HTTP command, so you can just say, hey, start serving this hyperdrive as a local HTTP server. That should be real handy. We'll do that. Yeah, why don't we test this guy? So I'm going to go to the user list to get an example. And I'll use my own site. And let's see what we got here. Node. Like a live server, yeah. So here I'll demo right now as I test it. Command is HTTP, you give it a URL. Serving at 8080. Alright, now, is it working or what's going on here? This may be the response when there's no index.html, which I don't think I have. No, we're just bugging. What do we got? So we got some warnings about unhandled errors and the... Now, it may just be being slow because the data's not coming down, so it could just be an availability problem here. Why don't we establish whether that's the case first. Using the cat command, which just dumps out the file content. Huh, no such file or directory index. That sounds completely wrong. What if I try to ls it? It's also possible that my code needs to get... Okay, maybe, let's reinstall my dependencies, because this command line tool is actually some older code that I'm bringing back to life. And it could just be a little outdated on its dependencies. While that's going, why don't I fix some of the usage here? So here are the commands that I got: ls and cat both done, so a way to list entries in a hyperdrive. And then we're going to implement diff and mirror in a little bit. And right now I'm working on the HTTP server. And this is going to be our Swiss Army knife. That's interesting. Let's see if we're doing something wrong here. Yeah, I think we are doing something wrong, and I'll tell you what it is. We're not getting on the network, which seems to be a mistake I make a lot lately. Anything like Git, can you explain a little bit more, like doing Git repos over the hypercore protocol? Or what do you think of there, Phil? Okay. I need my network configuration code, which I have over here. The old copy pasta. Yeah, so using Hyper as a Git remote should be totally doable. To be honest, I'm not totally sure how great of an idea it is. Not that it might be a bad idea. Yeah, if people want to do it, totally do it. As I understand it, it's just a matter of writing a command line application, which can be set as the remote sort of handler for Git. I haven't actually looked into it, but that's how I understand that works. And I see no reason why that should be a difficult or, you know, sorry, I'm trying to code at the same time. Yeah, I haven't looked into it, but I think it's totally doable. The Git adapter. Okay. So, why is... Oh, I'll tell you what else I'm not doing. I'm not waiting for the ready. Now let's try it. Aha! That's some action right there. How to hyperspace. Alright, let's see if our HTTP server is working now. There we go. So yeah, you just run this little command. HTTP. It's probably going to be drive HTTP, so all of our commands in HK will be, which stands for HyperKit. It'll be the HyperKit command line tool, and it'll be kind of a Swiss Army knife for working with hyperdrives, hypercores, and hyperbs. And so we'll probably namespace all the commands like hk space drive space what have you. So I need to namespace this thing, but okay, so I should look into, first thing I want to do is see what happens if I go here. Okay, it gives a nice little file listing. It's totally crummy, but it does what it should do. Great. Alright, that's working. Got us some P2P. Yeah, it would be cool if this works well enough, is you'd be able to just go onto a server and run this command and set up your reverse proxy and boom, website off of the P2P network. Nice way to deploy. Though, you might want to do that by just syncing the hyperdrive actively into a folder and then running like Nginx in front of it, which might be more efficient. Not sure. Okay, so let's look into this rejection here not getting handled, which I imagine is because I just need to wrap all this in a try-catch. Yeah, because it's probably hitting a stat right here, and that's throwing like, well, that file doesn't exist, and so then a response isn't coming back. Can't do that. Can't just throw away rejections. So let's wrap this whole handler inside of a try. Except for, this is only if you have to do server-side stuff, right? So this particular command is, it doesn't, you know, the HTTP server command that I'm writing right now could be handy for general sort of like debugging, you know, like maybe you want to check out a website that somebody made on Beaker, but you don't want to install Beaker, you run this command, now you got it popped open on a local host, right? But it could also be useful deploying on a server side. But HyperKit in general, the HK command, is, like I said, Swiss Army knife. So it's really just so that you can interact with, in fact, I think it was you asking if we're going to have like a headless speaker. This would be kind of like what that is. It is here to, you know, here to give you all the tools you need for command line hypercore interactions. Now let's see. Yeah, kind of like mirroring. HTTP gateway command. Yeah. Yeah, it should be handy. The whole thing should be handy. Okay, I just want to check and see if I got anything on Twitter. Okay. Okay, so that's our broad try catch, but we actually want to do, we don't want to just do a broad try catch on this thing, because the specific error we're hitting here is a 404, so having a 500 is not right. What we want to do is wrap that stat command over here in a try catch. And if that fails, we just respond with a 404. Okay, I gotta figure out why Command C isn't, or Control C isn't just working the way it should. Okay, there we go, 404. That's that. Okay. So probably what I need to be doing is listening for a process on exit. Now what is the right way to do that? I kind of doubt process.exit is going to get called on Control C. I'm thinking that exit only gets called whenever it's actually exiting, and we're blocking exiting from occurring, but let's just see. Yeah, so that's Probably just listen to the SIG-int, but I'm just wondering if there's another thing to listen to. Doesn't look like it. So process.SIG-int. Process.onSIG-int, rather. And when that happens, we say server.close. And I think that'll solve our little problem. There it is. Okay. Let's commit some of these updates. A little too tied together to separate there, so I'm not going to worry about that. We're going to need to rewrite our hyperdrive loading so that it's more generic. Thankfully, I've already done that with uplink, so I can copy a lot of that code. We'll get to that in a bit. Probably the first thing we ought to do is start namespacing these guys. So if I just call bin HK, we get a usage. And I think probably what we'll do is like this, hyperdrive commands, and then on all of these we'll just stick drive in front of them. And just so it's a little easier to grok, we'll do the full thing, so like HK drive. Yeah, that's what those look like. A little verbose, but hey. And then we'll add hyper-B commands. Probably hypercore commands too, but we'll get to that in a second. And the hyper-B commands, what do we get? Well, ls seems like a pretty natural one for certainly a start. HKB. And then, of course, we'll want get. And we'll probably want put, which would probably want to take JSON, right? Which is interesting. I think we can manage that. So those are all pretty handy. And then what else do we want? So hyperdrive, there's lots of things we could get involved there, like writing files and stuff, but I'm gonna wait for that for a second. Just gonna put that as our stopping point. Let's get the namespacing done correctly. So we got commands here. Let's see how to properly namespace this. Do I just put like a drive in there? Are hyperdrives still kind of like Git repositories with file history saved like dat sites were? Yes, they are. Yep, cool. That works, right? So we just throw. They are indeed. They everything is built on top of the hypercore logs, and so you naturally have write history on all of them. And let's see what happens if I ls a file. Nothing. Probably ought to say something. Yeah, and that can be handy to have the full history in there. It also can be kind of a pain. So we'll need some tools for managing the history at some point. We also, at some point, would love to get like version tags in there so you could like pinpoint a version and be like, this is version 1 of the drive or whatever, but just haven't gotten there yet. One thing at a time. So I think probably the next thing I'll do is go ahead and get some data structure genericness baked into this thing so that we can start to implement the Hyper-V commands. Because that's cool. Who didn't want to do that? You know what else we're going to need? Some like Hyper-V and hyperdrive creation commands. Yeah. But we'll get to that. So let's start with our generic code, which I'm going to steal from uplink, because who wants to write code twice? And okay. This code's a little silly. Yeah, having a little more Git-ishness would be nice. I don't know if we'll ever have branches, per se, but I think really hyperdrives are more akin to NPM or packages. You know, I don't know if they're going to have the kind of quite the Git level of fine-grained control, but you can always, you know, copy hyperdrives into new hyperdrives and diff them that way. So you can sort of make a Git-like experience using multiple hyperdrives. Ryan's asking, if you're wanting to work with data that's changing frequently, would it be better to throw that at a Hyper-V? Is there an advantage to that? The way that a Hyper-V works that's different from a hyperdrive, there's sort of two pieces that differ. One of them is that Hyper-V has a different kind of an internal indexing structure, which makes it really good at reading ranges of keys in order. So if you're thinking about, should I use a hyperdrive or a Hyper-V, you know, other than just whether or not you're thinking in terms of a key value database, the major difference is that a Hyper-V can do things like give me the keys that start with the letter F through X, right? You could get these little ranges of the keys efficiently. That's pretty important. Hyperdrive can't do that. With Hyperdrive, you have to list out all the files in a folder, and then you'd have to do that subset, so it's a little less efficient at that. But the other kind of major difference is that Hyperdrive basically is built out of two hypercores. You have the metadata hypercore, which has all the file listings, and then you have the content hypercore, which has the content of the files. And it's designed that way because you want to be able to get the file listings without having to download all the content of the files, because you can have like multi-gig files in your drive, so you put them in a separate core. You can get the file listing out and then only pull out the file content when you need it, right? Now that means there's a little more read overhead, because it means you're going to get the file listing out of the metadata log, and then you're going to say, okay, now go to the hypercore, the content log, and pull out the pieces of the actual data. So there's a little more overhead, but of course that means that large files won't slow down the process of just reading a directory. Hyper-V doesn't do that. Hyper-V is all just one log. And so if you're working with smaller pieces of information that are changing more quickly, Hyper-V would probably be a better choice, because you're going to not need to have to do that extra read on the network. Now, whether or not that's a huge difference, probably not major, but the keys can be arbitrary. In fact, why don't I open up the docs to show a little bit here. So it looks a lot like LevelDB, where key value, right? And there is a recently merged feature, which, did we forget to document this thing? No, there it is. You got this thing right here, which if you've ever used LevelDB, you may be familiar with sublevels. Well, it's a similar thing here, where you can basically make what you might call like a folder, kind of, inside of the Hyper-V database. Real handy. Yeah. If you're doing databasey stuff, use Hyper-V. And if you're doing filesy stuff, use Hyperdrive. Different vibes. Okay, I might as well keep that open, but I don't need you. Don't need you for the moment. Don't need you. The freaking manual is, you know, not always super easy. So I'm here for these questions. Feel free to Don't feel bad, you gotta ask. It's what I'm here for. I am here for your questions. That's my action. Okay, what all are we missing? Okay, so those, good. Need to get the locking answered. Do we need the locks? How badly do we need locks? Might be wise. Yeah, probably would be wise to get the locking in. Good. Okay. So let's grab that locking code. Okay, so we got all the dependencies I need. Let's have a quick review of this code to see if anything looks wrong. So my get client bit is wrong because that's returning a promise. I'd really rather not. So why don't we change how that's working? Why don't we have a setup function which reliably loads up the client for us, so that the get hyperclient can just do this and not be asynchronous. And then in our setup process, we will just always, yeah, right there. That's why I did this, so that I can import hyper from lib hyper index.js, and I just do the setup call every command. And with that done, I can now just get the client in any code that I got going. Now this code's all going to go. We're going to replace all this with the hyperstructure code over here. Okay, so no more red squigglies. If you're curious how to get the red squigglies, VS Code, you can run your code through the TypeScript compiler. It is handy. I am a major advocate of this. You can even use JSDoc type annotations. Real handy. I just strongly recommend it. Okay, I think this is actually all set. So now I can go over to, let's start with the ls command. And I can do import from my hyperstruct.js, and I need to name it. And rather than just doing this right here, I'll do this. Var drive equals await hyperstruct.get. And I'm going to need a little more logic, because I need to parse the hyper URL and get the path and the key out separately. So then I'll do the URL p on the origin. Do we have origin? I guess we don't. So we'll just do host name, which will be the key. And then we'll do res equals await drive.api.promises.readdir urlp.pathname. And now we should be all set. Now we should be generic. Module not found. Can't find hyperindex imported from... I probably am missing the .js. Yep. I probably need the .js all over the place, actually. Not there, though. Can't find messages. Huh. Wait a minute. So I do need the .js there. Which is... Ah, it's common. Wait. It's expected to be type common.js, which does not support named exports. Okay, let's see here. It may be that I can do hypertry messages. Let's see if it's cool with that. Oh, you know what? It was Hyper-B that it was complaining about. Interesting. Not super great that I'm... Okay, so it's... That seems to be improving. Okay, so I was using the .header value, so I just need to go over here and the Hyper-B messages .header. Hey, look at that autocomplete. That's that TypeScript in action. Don't use it directly, but I get some of the benefits. Okay, now it's telling me a wait lock is not a constructor, which sounds like yet another. Interesting. I wonder what a wait lock is. If you're not a constructor, then what are you? I need to... It's a function. Huh, did a wait lock change its syntax recently? Or its usage, rather? No. Let's see what happens if I just call it. Not a function either, huh? What's your game, a wait lock? So we got a class here, and it's doing exports.default equals the class. Okay. So it's should be a constructor. So somebody's screwing with me here. What's going on? Let's make sure this is, I mean, just to be sure. Do a little logging just to make sure it's actually failing where I think it is. Yeah. ES modules in it's. Is it possible that it's .default? Oh brother. Sure, that's not gonna allow that. What's going on here? Wow, that's some Node ES modules weirdness. I'm not sure what's going on with that. Alright, well, you know. If it works, it works. I'm not gonna mess with it. Whatever, man. Okay, so we're good there. We're good here. Let's keep on updating our commands over here. So one thing we ought to do is actually, if drive dot type does not equal hyperdrive, then we should throw. You know what might be nice actually is to get some of this like this, like expect hyperdrive, and then just like be able to reuse all this. So now my struct loader will have this optional expect. And so now I can keep the loading code all the same except for right here. And then if expect and struct.type is not what's expected, then we can throw consistently. Okay, so that'll be handy. That way we make sure we don't end up using the drive commands. DAT is now called the hypercore protocol. Sometimes we call it generally hyperspace. And hyperdrives are the particular data structure that replace DAT archives. That makes sense? Let me know if you got any more questions on that, because it's a little confusing. Not everybody's favorite that we had to do the rebrand, but what can you do? Alright, let's check if that worked. So now we're trying cat. Good deal. Let's use that command R. Good deal. That's working. So we got drive cat, drive ls, and now drive http. Okay, so we'll get the hyperstruct code instead of the getter load drive. And then we'll do... Now it's entirely possible we could make this HTTP server handle Hyper-Vs at some point too, which would be cool, but for now it's going to be just hyperdrives. And now we just need to update some of the usage here, because the API is changed. It's now drive.api. Okay. And is that still working? Good deal. Oh, we gonna load? What's going on? Come on now, the README can't be that hard to find. That's interesting. Because I was just catting the README, so why is it failing to load here? This is interesting. It just gave me an error while serving file index.md with a no error message. How does that happen? Oh, you know what? That may just be, may have been just on account of an abort. So let's try doing this real quick, just to make sure we're not. Let's check that pump usage. And then we gotta find out what's going on with the README. Yeah, so I think the error is not always... Okay. Surprised we actually didn't see that sooner. That might be a bad sign. Okay, this whole thing is being crazy now. Why would you quit? What in tarnation? This thing just completely is losing it on me. Not only is it failing to serve, but now it won't even close. So we must have an interesting bug here. That's probably actually the hyperspace daemon. So that's probably not the one I want to kill. Why won't you die? There it goes. Good gravy. What was that? That's straight up bizarre. See here, I'm catting the readme. And it's failing there too. Oh, no, there, now it goes. Huh. Okay, let's see what happens when I do the HTTP. Oh, now it's unhappy. Now it ain't loading. Interesting. Well, let's do what you always do in a case like this. Start throwing some logs. We gotta figure out where this thing's starting to choke on us and why. I might bet it's something in here, like maybe we got some kind of like endless loop occurring. Yeah, now it's something that's happening that's locking the whole thing up. But not only locking it up, but like not even responding to a SIG-int, which is like I can't kill it. So something's going way wrong. Probably not getting any head requests here, but you know. Huh. I'm annoyed, but I'm more interested than annoyed. Okay. Let's try it again. And I'm gonna go, let's start with just a read dir, which seems to work okay. Indeed it does. 1, 2, 3. And 3 should abort where it does, because it returns with the file listing. So let's find out what happens. First of all, let's see, you know, go to index.md, which doesn't seem to be angry. All fine. Now let's try readme again. And it's angry. Gets all the way to 5, which is right here. And then it gets angry here. So the MIME type detection has angered the Node.js god. So that's interesting. Let's see what's happening inside that loop. Is it trying to... Could be the sort of thing where the length is... you know, what's killing me is that it's freezing up the thread. That's really surprising to me. I'm surprised that the event loop is failing. Because it should be catching that SIG-int and killing itself. So we're hitting that fine, and then we're hitting here. And what I'm actually interested to see is if it's looping indefinitely, which I guess would, you know, make sense as to why the event loop is not relinquishing itself. But I don't expect it to be doing that. No, it's not. So what it's doing is it's hanging on that call, and I would bet good money. Huh. So I'm guessing it's because it can't satisfy the length of 512, which I would feel like is a bug, because if the file is smaller than 512, that shouldn't be a problem. But we can, you know, verify this by just commenting out that length bit, and let's see if that actually fixes it. But, you know, I find that interesting that I would have trouble closing the process whenever part of the HTTP handler is hanging, because that shouldn't, yeah, so that's our bug. Now, why would that make it so that I can't close the process? Might be because for some reason, you know, Node is like, well, we got active work that's occurring. So, you know, but it should respond to the double control C. That should be like, all right, we're out. Let's see, let's unfix our bug. first thing I want to do is find out why I can't just force the thing to close, because I don't want other people, you know, bugs like this may happen again. And I don't want people to not be able to close the stupid process. That's, you know, that's not how this should work. So let's trigger the bug again, see if that SIGINT is getting caught. It is getting caught. So I'm guessing what's happening is because I'm handling the SIGINT, perhaps. The double Control-C is just, perhaps that's just not doing it now. I can't seem to force it to close. So let's look into that. Why, for instance, might... Let's look into the node documents on the HTTP server and see if close might give us some information. Or if there's a way to be like, close, but, you know, for real. Well, let's go ahead and console.log what happens there, but I'm guessing that it's just not gonna... So, like, if I right away... Okay. Okay, let's try this. So maybe the HTTP server is actually closing as expected. It's entirely possible, but then what's keeping the thing alive? No, it's not, because that callback didn't get called. So I don't want to do like a forcing it to, I don't want to do like a process.exit in there, because I want everything to clean up correctly if it can. But I guess we could do this. Why don't we do little protection, which this is kind of garbage, but we'll give ourselves a timeout of 1 second here. And if the timeout does not, if the timeout gets triggered, then it's not killing. There it goes. So my fallback worked. Now I'm fascinated to know why calling.close is refusing to finish, because it has, you know, requests it hasn't served yet. My impression is it should be just like, nope, we're done, we're out. So for some reason the HTTP server code is not just forcing all those responses to finish, and maybe that's some kind of thing where it's trying to do clean shutdown, which is an understandable thing. That's just not what I want here. Is there any way I can force? No. All right. Well, if it takes longer than a second, it'll get forced. So that'll be that. Okay. So that's bug number 1, which was, you know, why the heck wasn't it closing? But bug number 2 is why the heck asking for a length that can't be satisfied is actually a bug. Because that shouldn't be a, you know, it shouldn't stall out the thing. It should just be if the length is of the requested object is less than 512, it just responds with what length it does exist. So let's first check the docs, see if there's something about how Hyperdrive API is designed that's going to deal with that, and if not, we may just need to bug Matthias. Okay, so there's a start and an end, or a start and a length. I wonder if doing end would be better than start, but that really does seem like a bug. Yeah, doesn't like that any better. So I think that may be a bug I need to... Oh, and now... Yep, there it goes, right. So yeah, I guess I'm going to have to follow that upstream with math. So we'll just disable that code for now. No MIME type detection for now. Certainly not by looking at the content itself. We're just going to do this by looking at the extension, which, frankly, in some ways I think is the better choice. Doing the chunk observation is handy in some cases, but not in all cases. give that the old fix me as if that'll ever happen. Not actually the most pressing problem here. Alright, so got a big commit, which is moving to more generic stuff, and when you do this, you get to delete code, everybody's favorite thing to do, so let's do that. And make sure that there was no code in here that was relying on any of that. So let's do like get. Okay, that all looks fine. What was it? There's load, there's read dir, okay, root file. Yep, okay, all that old code is good. And just to triple check, we'll run a command real quick, see if anything throws. We're good, all right. And review the code one more time, and good, all right. All right, that's that. Make sure no one's trying to get in touch. I think we're looking good. Anybody in the chat doing anything interesting this weekend? Any big plans? I think I'm going to be probably doing variations of work. Might grab some tacos with somebody. Try to dodge the Covey with some torchies. Oh, got a little more code we can delete. That's always fun, right? Okay, so D&D, nice. How many people? Well, first question: are you the DM or are you a player? A player. Okay, so LS is done. Cat is done. HTTP, good spot. Could get into the diff and mirror, which will be a little more work, or we could get into the Hyper-B stuff. You're DM, okay, man. Is this your first session on the story, or a new story, or 5 players? Wow, you're for real on this thing. Resuming a quest or starting a new one? Contract work and garden cleanup. Ryan, is that contract work in addition to another job, or is that just your contract work spilling into the weekend? Okay, why don't we get the Hyper-B stuff done? And we really ought to probably do drive create and Hyper-B create. Those open some questions about managing them, but I'm not going to worry about that at the moment. Yeah, side stuff. That's cool. I don't know what the Foundry VTT is. Help a rookie out. Is that Foundry sounds like it's another different rule set, like not traditional D&D. Oh, Foundry virtual tabletop. So you're doing it online. Can't wait till we all have AR glasses and we can do D&D gathered around a coffee table. That's my. I think board games once VR AR comes along. Everybody put on your AR glasses. You got the board game right there. Oh man, I can't wait. I'm so stoked for that. Somebody in the chat do that. Somebody, come on, get on it. make my AR board games. Strategy games are gonna be awesome that way. StarCraft, but right there. Oh, it's gonna be cool. Wonder if it would work on Hyper. I wouldn't force it. We may get there someday. All right. Tilt 5, I'm not familiar. Is that what I'm dreaming of here? Getting into this whole idea? You know, one thing we can do is allow you to set a title on it, but I'm not going to worry about that yet. So we're just going to change that to create. And then that's pretty much it. We just console.log the drive URL and we're all set. Love it when it's easy like that. So let's get, first of all, let's proper namespace these guys. Why don't we check this out, the Tilt 5. This is what I'm talking about right here. Ryan knows exactly what I'm about. Yeah, I mean, come on, it's so cool. I mean, the glasses don't look super cool yet, but you know, someday they will. That's gonna be so fun. I saw somebody made a sort of like a Command and Conquer Red Alert that was in a VR setting, and so you would use one hand to like hold the map and another hand to like interact with it. And so they were just sort of like moving it around, and then like telling things to go places. It was such a cool, like, oh man, I think strategy games are going to have a major resurgence with VR because it's kind of one of the more simple things to get into, you know. I just wait till we get like Pro League with that stuff. Oh my gosh, I'm a huge fan of watching Pro League strategy games, and so when the VR gets involved, oh my gosh, there are going to be some killer players, and it's going to be so fun to watch. I'll be fascinated to see if your micro can get better with VR or if it's harder. Alright, so let's see if my drive create command works. Yeah, I should probably do more than just dump the URL. I should probably do something like... It's gonna be cool. Boom. Now, of course, that thing has like nothing in it. So if I do ls, it'll just be empty. Oh. What just happened? Okay, easy. Expected a string. That's what happened. Okay. Our ls command needs to be able to deal with a possible no path. Yeah. All right. So that's that. I'll go ahead and commit that. And now let's just knock out those Hyper-B commands. Sometimes I have trouble deciding which I think is more fun, Hyper-B or Hyperdrive, because like nice little network key value database is pretty cool. And I mean, I think we're about to see how cool it is, because like now we get a little command line interface to it. That is neat. Let's start with create, of course. That seems like a natural place to start. And look how easy it is. Hyper-B instead of hyperdrive, and we're done. I can't believe we called this thing Hyper-B. I didn't know. I'm somewhat to blame. I'm kind of the one that came up with that name. I didn't know it was going to be important. So now they're called bees, as in the bug. That's how it goes. Invalid command B. Did I not get the... What's wrong? What's wrong here? There it goes. Okay. So now we got Hyper-B's. You like Hyper-B? It's certainly cute. I mean, we could have gone with something really generic like HyperDB, but DB is so generic, it's actually kind of a problematic term to use. Problem is just that, you know, you say Hyper-B and people are like, what is that? What's a Hyper-B? Oh, well, it's a key value database. Oh, well, why the heck is it called a Hyper-B? Just is. There actually is a reason for what it's worth. It's called a Hyper-B because it's a B tree internally. So we were talking about names, and we were kind of internally calling it Hyper-B, just like hyper with then the letter B. And so then I said, I don't want to just call it Hyper-B with 2 E's at the end, and it's kind of cute, and that's how that happened. So that's what it's referring to, is it's a B tree. Okay. So we're going to do the minimal version of this first, and then we'll come back to it. And actually, I need my listing code. Oh, let's see. Boom, reason enough. That's the why. It's not illogical. Not port, pump. Sometimes I really don't like streaming interfaces. I get why we use them. I'm just not sure I'm always a big fan. I mean, whatever. Whatever, man. Okay, so that's actually not right. We'll come back to dealing with the path name in a little bit. And actually, ls may not be... No, we'll stick with ls, but it's going to be a... We'll elaborate on this in a second. And I need concat is what I need next. Do I have concat? Don't. Oh yeah, I do. Okay, concat stream. Okay, so we'll start with that. This will be a little debuggy. A little debuggy. And I'm going to use the Hyper-B from my uplink, which I can find the URL of by jumping into the internal grabbing that key there. And now I'm going to do node bin hk.js bls and the URL. Valid command B. What are you talking about? I didn't import it. Boom. And just like that, you too can list keys inside your Hyper-V. Now I need to do a couple of things. The first thing I need to do is modify that output, because that is not super useful output. So I wonder if we want to use... Simple thing to do would just be to output the key and then a colon and then the value. But there's also a very real possibility that if we do that, you know, that the question here is how do we want to format this? Because like the colon could technically be, I could just use a space, but a space could be in the keys as well. It's not a huge deal because it's not like, well, I mean, people may want to try to write commands that are like parsing this output, so I guess I have to think about this a little bit, huh? You could always add in a switch that has it output in like JSON like this or something, or in some kind of special format, where you could specify the separator or something like that. Yeah, I'm just going to do a space separator for now and let... I mean, I could also, like, do a formatted output, like some kind of... does Node support table? Console.table? Oh, it might. It does. Yeah, let's do console.table. That's fun, right? So we're going to handle that by doing console.table, and we're going to do object.entries. Oh, no, not object.entries. It's going to be, because it's actually an array already, so we're going to do res.map, and that'll give us a bunch of objects, and then we respond back with, well, actually, shoot, I think we could just do it like this. Yeah. The only thing we need to do is modify the key so that it's outputting in the proper form. Okay, let me think. Let me think. Yeah. So it's going to be res.map entry. And so keys are encoded in the key encoding is actually somewhat generic inside of Hyper-V's, but there's something that we're kind of converging on, which is UTF encoding with a null separator, which is what the sub thing does. So what I basically am getting are these buffers, right? And if you look inside the buffer right there, you see that double zero? That's the separator. So we essentially want to split the key buffer into multiple buffers along those separator characters, and then just do, you know, buffer.toString UTF-8, and that'll give us the actual key. And so I had some code that did this before. I don't suppose that Node has some kind of like equivalent of string.split, but on buffers. That'd be crazy, right? Nah. That would have been a little too convenient, I figure. I got some code that I can just pull here. Yeah. I'm going to assume for the moment that I'm only going to need this here, so I'm not going to put it into some utility. And this is actually meant for the front end, so I got to convert it a little bit. Now, does this have slice? It does. Good. And then I'm going to join it using the /. And so, there you have it. Index, huh? You're going to do that to me. That table formatting is not my favorite. For one, I'd like the keys to be left aligned, not centered. For two, I don't really want that index thing. That's not any good. It's not helpful. Let's take a look at the console docs, see if there's something I can do about that. Alternate properties for construct. Okay, so you can choose, it looks like, which keys to, but you can't, can you not tell it not to do the index? Don't love it. It's not quite right. I don't love it, but I'm going to leave it for now. I bet there's some nice console.table alternatives. Let's take a look. Yeah, that's a little more of the vibe I'm looking for. As a table. Do I know these coders? I don't know if I do. Looks fine. As table it is. And that's how we got pwned. Alright. Let's try this as table. Okay. Well, definitely better. It's not printing the JSON. See if that's configurable. Yeah, you got some trimming, that's nice. Right alignment, custom object printer. Might be our action here. Okay, let's try the custom object printer here. So we gotta configure it. that totally didn't work. What's going on here? Configure, print, looks right. Let's take a look and see what's going on. No, that's not getting hit. Is print not right? It's returned. So I gotta do a chaining syntax. But I didn't want to do that. Alright. Oh, good lord. That is hideous. But it works. Okay, let's try to clean this up a little. Alright, that's how that's gonna have to be. But not bad, you know, it's handy. That makes sense to put the sequence at the beginning, but I'm gonna leave it. Okay, so that's good. That's good, that's good. Sure, we'll run into problems with the length. In fact, I need to find out how it happens with JSON objects that are bigger, if it can do multi-line effectively, but we will find out about that later. So let's add the put command next. How about? And I'm going to grab another soda real quick, so BRB. Alright, so now we got a put command to write. Not going to need as table. Okay. So one of the interesting things we're going to have to figure out is how to deal with like JSON or the different kinds of formattings of the value that they might be passing in here. Like the simple thing to do, of course, would be to do await b.put at the p.pathname with the value, which is this right here. Now that'll work fine for strings. Might work fine for numbers. But as soon as we get objects involved, it's a little bit of a problem. And objects are going to be a big part of what you put in there. There's also a lot that I haven't addressed quite yet in how we deal with paths. And we'll have to get back to that in a moment. b.put is not a... maybe it's set? What's the API? Oh, no, it's b.api.put. Let's make sure my usage is correct. Yeah, that looks right. Okay. Okay, that was interesting. The slash got included, we don't want that. And the value is wrong. Forgot to change the accessor, so let's try it again. And, you know, let's update this a little here so that it says something more interesting, like Okay. There we go. Okay, so better. Now let's get into this path bit. So what we want to do is we're going to convert the slashes. We're going to handle the slashes as though they are the separators. And then we're going to need to do a URL decode so that a percent encoded slash is used correctly. So it's a lot I just described there, but let's jump into the code here. So export function from path to hyper-B key list. And so the first thing we'll do is split the path and filter out any empty segments. And then we're going to map with a decode URI component. So that'll give us this array of key names. And so then we're going to do for let key, no, we're going to do let I equals 0. I is less than the path.length minus 2, because we're going to only traverse up to the you'll see. I believe the method is child, or maybe it's sub. It's sub. It is sub, so change that, and then the last thing to do is take this, and you're going to do path.length minus 1. So now, when I run that put again, it should correctly put it to foo and not have that slash in there. So that's a start. So now, oh, you know what we're going to need is a delete function, huh? We'll get into that in a second, because with the delete function, I can get into fixing that. Now, what is the encode, if I encode URI component for slash 2f? So let's see if I can overwrite %2f foo. If this is working correctly, that should now have updated. Yep, it did. Okay, so we're totally rocking here. So what I'm doing here is basically treating the slashes in the path name as a separator to go into the sub namespaces, right? And then if you do a percent encoded slash, that actually gets encoded in there. So a little bit of a tricky thing, and we're going to need to actually do percent encoding over here in the ls. So we'll get to that in a second. But one last thing to check is just that the my logic here for parent child. Okay, so that didn't work, so I screwed something up. Because the parent part of that namespace got lost, and it just did child. So it's like the sub didn't work. The prefix, you know? Now, why wouldn't that have worked? Because I did key space equals key space dot sub. Well, let's do a console.log of the path, because maybe I'm wrong about it needing to be minus 2. And that's saved. Come on. What's going on? Oh, the stupid status log thing. Yeah, so that part's right. It's just not, it should be -1. Yep, okay. So now let's update my ls code. And the key to path, not only does it need to do a toString, but it also needs to do an encode URI component. What we should see once I do this is that there will be a %2f in our ls output. Yeah, and there it is, just as expected, right? We're using the forward slashes in the URL paths to indicate the 0 byte that's used as a separator. So that is what's going on there. Okay, so that's our put, and I think, okay, now we gotta figure out the JSON part of this. Because if I do that, it's gonna just write the string. I bet there's a nice node module for us on this one. Let's take a look. Maybe something like this. Okay, that's not what I'm looking for. So no to that. I guess I could just try to do a Json parse. Yeah, alright, here's how we're going to do this. So it's going to be a parse value. And we're going to always try to parse it as JSON first. And if we successfully parse, then we'll return that value. If we unsuccessfully parse, we could just return the string. What I don't want to have happen is that you think that you have put in valid JSON. Yeah, maybe it just needs to... I think it's gotta, I think we always have to, for safety, it's always gotta be valid JSON. I think that's the only safe way to do this. We don't want it to sort of subtly, you know, subtly not be JSON. So that's how you end up getting bad data. So that's what we're going to go with for now. May not end up being the right solution, but that's what we're doing. At least, may not be the right solution in the long run, but we'll see. We can always adapt it. Okay, now that's valid JSON, so now you're just being a pain. What do you mean it inspected? Oh, it's stripping the quotes. Dang it. It's stripping the quotes. And in this case, it's not even that it's stripping the quotes, it's that it's space separated. There it goes. Oh gosh, what is that? Why are there new lines in there? That's not right. Oh no, that is right. That's the... Okay. Yeah. Okay. 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 One problem after another. So, okay, the new lines are in there because I wanted to have new line printing. Okay, so our valid parsing is now valid if you wrap it in single quotes. Now, what if you want to just write a single string and you don't want those quotes to get stripped? It's going to strip them quotes. Well then. Seems like the right way to do this then is to not expect JSON to get passed into the command line because that just seems error prone. I think instead what we need to do is just expect only scalars to get passed into the command line, and then if you want to pass in JSON, you got to pipe it in. I think that's the only way to make this work safely. And I got some thoughts here. So first of all, so the Json Parse ain't gonna fly. So the first thing I'm gonna do is this. All right, we're gonna handle the piping second, but the first thing I'm gonna do is if the value starts with any kind of bracket, we're going to print out a little warning. And status log, you're just a pain, so I'm out of here. Yep, little warning. Yeah, see, that's interesting. So it's impossible to tell looking at it as it is that it's not JSON. So our listing output needs to be better. Our listing output needs to JSON stringify always. Because if you do that, then you should be able to tell that it's not actually JSON. Right? You'll see those backslashes and you'll be able to realize, yep, that is a string. That ain't a JSON there. Now, the key part of that shouldn't be in the quotes. So Let's take a look at what that second parameter is, and maybe I can figure out what that. Yeah. Okay. K equals value. You're gonna stringify it, otherwise you're not gonna. Oh, what are you doing to me? Okay. Better. So now we need to handle the piping in. And that's going to involve a couple. I've never done this before, so I'm going to have to dig around a little bit. But what we need to do is detect if there's data in stdin. And if there is, so if there is, we pull it all in, and then we need to figure out if it's, do we always parse it as JSON if it's stdin? We could do it that way, but you might sometimes just be writing binary data. So it could be the sort of thing where we just try to do a JSON parse, and if the JSON parse fails, yeah, you know what? Oh, you know what we can do here is we can confirm. That's what we're gonna do. Look at this. Look at this. This is perfect, because now what it's going to do is it's going to say written as a string. Now, interestingly enough, I would bet if I do a number, it's going to be a string too. Or nothing. What the heck is that? What? Oh, it must be throwing, and then I'm not catching. Value that starts with is not a function, of course. Oh, so it is parsing because it must be, okay. Great. So see, that's handy now, right? It's telling us whenever, if I tried to do JSON here, we're giving all the protections that a person would like. It's saying, warning, it is not JSON, type is a string. See, that's good stuff right there. So now we need to detect if the stdin has information, and if it does, we got to use that for the value instead of the command line position. And then we pull in all of this stream, buffer it up, try to parse it as JSON. If that fails, we fall back to, well, we could do it as binary. No, we're doing JSON encoding, so it'll have to be either, we do it as UTF-8 or base64. Probably do it as UTF-8 for now, and if we find that we need base64 encoding or something like that later, we can handle that. So I'm gonna take a quick break to use the restroom, which, do I have a way to mute my mic? Should probably figure that out before I... All right, back in action. Somebody in the chat, please let me know if you can hear me. You should be able to. Alrighty, so get that command line stdn node.js detect stdn. All right. Process.stdn is tty. Audio good. Good deal. Okay. So that is our start. Notice I had a message on Twitter. Let me check into that real quick. Oh yeah, I know about that. We'll get back to that. Okay. So now we got detection, and now we need to read the stream, which I'm guessing I can use the whole pump concat nonsense I was doing before. Well, let's just take a look real quick. Where am I? Not on stream. I'm looking for process and stdn, which pretty sure this is a stream, readable stream. Yep. Okay, so I should be able to do this. Using Twitter as documentation. Oh, yeah. Yeah, even better. That was, who was that? That was, yeah, Miles Borens, who I follow on Twitter, so I see him all the time. Okay, don't know if I ever talked to Miles though. It's just funny because I'm, you know, one of the official Node core team. I'm like, okay, who's that gonna be? Oh, it's Miles. Okay. So I need to grab some of my imports here. And then I need to steal some of this code here. And this actually needs to go right here. Okay. Okay. Now this bit changes from that to process.stdin, and this changes to value, and we're going to console.log value to see what we get. And I'm going to do put with an echo foo. Okay, so we got nothing. Got nothing. Maybe I'm... Oh no. Did I just overwrite node? Okay. Pay attention. Wrong kind of pipe operator. There it is. Okay, so it just gave a value as required. And then it didn't bomb out the way it should. Which suggests that... Hey, Michael, how's it going? I just saw your Twitter DM. I'll hit you up later. so it looks like our check is TTY isn't working. It's undefined. So Miles Bourne has steered us wrong, and or I'm doing something wrong. I don't believe I am, though. Time to read. Process.stdout and stderr differ from other node streams in important ways. They're used internally by the console. Writes may be synchronous depending on what the stream is connected to and whether the system is Windows or POSIX. Oh, that sounds great. These behaviors are partly for historical reasons, as changing them would create backwards incompatibility. Everybody loves that. So, to check if a stream is connected to a TTY context, you check the STTY property. Oh, you know what? I may just actually have my check reversed. Because the TTY, I did have it reversed. Yeah. And which should mean that if I do the, yeah, because TTY is referring to it being, yeah, okay. Is TTY is referring to it being connected, wired up to the console, not is it wired up to an input stream. So Michael's asking what I'm working on, and I am working on a tool called HyperKit, which let me dump the usage out here. Sort of a Swiss Army knife of hypercore protocol tools for interacting with hyperdrives, hyper-Bs, which are a new kind of data structure, a key value store. And eventually I'll get some hypercore tools in there too. And so you can do things like create hyperdrives, list the files, or output a file on a hyperdrive, even throw up a HTTP gateway, you know, mirroring a hyperdrive. So it's our Swiss Army knife for interacting with the hypercore protocol via the command line, which is something we need just as much as the uplink project, which I'm working on. But this was one I was like, you know what? I could throw this one together in a weekend, stream while I do it, and everybody would be happy to have it. So we're knocking this guy out. And right now I'm working on the hyper-B put command. And so let's update our usage. And because the value is actually optional now, because you can use the stdn. And if the type of value is undefined, then we should say something like now if I don't specify anything, it should give us that action. Yep. Okay, and now we need to work on our stdn. Now the stdn that we did, when we did it just now, it was giving us a buffer, not surprising. And so now we need to do value. Yes, it is a sort of a spiritual successor to the dat command line. Yeah. All right. What am I doing? Yeah, we're gonna need some tools for like choosing to seed or unseed things too. That's a whole thing. Yeah, we'll get to that later. Okay, so now we got the UTF-8. So foo should correctly, yep. And now if I ls, we should see the value at JSON. to be foo with a new line and included the new line. I think we have to include the new line. Yeah, because they shouldn't strip that. So that's interesting though. That should mean that if I did, so let's create a quick JSON file. Oh, you know what? We got package JSON, so we'll just dump the package JSON. Now that of course got written as a string, so we don't try to. Oh my! What do we got? Big old JSON value. That is ugly. That is not good news. Ugh, our tabular output may not be the right action in the long run here. Does it have a new line at the end? It does. So I do need to strip that new line. Michael says, nice, glad to see all the hyperdrive stuff coming together. Yeah, me too. Yeah, it really does feel like it's we're making real fast progress lately. So we're going to strip the new line, and then we're going to try to parse. And if it fails, we're not going to worry about it. So now I'm going to do this again. Type as object. Worked like a charm. But that output is garbage. So I don't think we're going to do it this way. You know what I think we should do with ls? Is new line separate. That's what we ought to do. So as table, you're out of here. Thanks for the, so long and thanks for all the fish. But we're not going to do tabular output. We're going to do our own thing. And it's going to look like this. It's going to be a string. And it's going to be a little something like this. So it's not going to be the prettiest output, but it'll do the job. Boy, that is ugly. Let's tweak. You know, surely we could cook up something a little better than this. Let's tweak it a little bit. Let's do something like this, where we don't get a little less verbose and yeah, and we put the sequence up next to the key. Okay. Still not super pretty. Still not super satisfied with this. I could do it like this. And then it just sort of leaves me wondering how badly we need that sequence number in there. Which I'm sort of inclined to say we don't really that badly. So let's remove the sequence number. That, I think, is our action. That's a little easier to grok, all told. And you know, we could actually use chalk here. Do some highlighting on the values, like I do in the usage. I don't know if that's always the best idea, but it is nice. I have a feeling at some point somebody's going to open an issue like, yo, that formatting is making this impossible to parse. If I had to bet. Because somebody's going to want to pipe the output of this into a command. And we're going to have all these control characters in there. And they will be so annoyed that I did that. What's going on? What did I do wrong? Chalk.grain, that one looks right. So let's look in the ls. Okay, what's wrong? Can't read property 1 of null. What is going on? Where is it failing? Can't read property 1 of null. How did I just blow up? Okay, got a kitty cat here. What's up, kitty cat? Can't make property 1 of null. Why aren't you giving me a stack? Something's gone wrong inside my hyperstruct code. What is that about? How did I blow that up? Yeah, kitty cat. What's going on, huh? What's your deal? From URL to keystring is suddenly failing on me? How is that happening? Maybe I screwed up the input there. I did. I accidentally dropped a character. And can't read property 1 of null. That's not freaking useful. Do that again, it'll now tell me invalid hyper URL. So we won't have any more of those mysteries. It was a dumb bug to get caught up in the middle of everything. Okay, so now we got that green text in there. Is that helpful? That's kind of helpful. I guess I'm wondering if I expect the value to be green or the key to be green. I kind of think the value ought to be green, and maybe the key can be bold. Is this a good idea? This may be a bad idea. May just want to leave it. let's not do this to ourselves. Let's just not get the formatting in. It's fine. None of that looks particularly good anyway. All right. So we got put, and put is in good working order, so that's great. And we got list, and now we just need get. And I think that'll be all of our Hyper-B methods for now. No. Let's get that get in there. Get's going to be pretty easy compared to all the other ones. Actually, let's see. I'm going to need to do this kind of thing, but we'll get there in a second. We'll get there in a second. Not going to need pump or concat, so that can go, and this can go, and this can go. Let's import it into our top level. You put undefined, or are you adding a delete function? I'm going to add a delete function. I just got to put that in the list. Let's put that in the list. You're absolutely right. I forgot that. There is a delete function. Alrighty. First things first. Let's get the get. So we get the get, we get the B, and then we need to do basically what we did with the put, which is we need to get the path and get the right key space, like so, which means I need to grab this import. Okay, and then we change put to get. And then we do, okay, so it looks like I will need that key to path code. And I'm going to do, inside lib, I'm just going to have some till. There's that key to path, and it's just this action. Okay, ls still works. Let's try some gets. Let's try first foo. Works. Let's try JSON. Works. Let's try settings. Let's do parent-child. Okay, almost works. Yeah, okay, so we need to reconstruct the path. So actually we don't need key to path on this one exactly. Actually, I'm curious, if I get rid of that, is it going to be binary? No, it's not. Okay, interesting. Okay, so in that case, I need to basically, don't need key to path. What I need to do is I need to take the path, you know, let's see. I could just do this. There we go. Good. Do we really need to output the path? We could just dump the value. That actually might be more helpful. I would just dump the value instead of including the path, which is kind of redundant information. So that was all silly. But that's pretty cool. That is neat stuff. Alright, so that's our getter. Now there's actually one other thing in ls that we need to think about doing, which is that currently it dumps out everything, which is kind of like doing a recursive read gear. where, see, even like the sub namespaces are being included. And I think it's worth asking if it should only sort of indicate that there is a child namespace there, but not dump the values within. Like this is like a recursive flag that's been turned on. There's also, you know, might be a good idea to get parameters in there, like only give me the keys and things like that. We'll come back to that another day, though. I'm not going to even do that today. We'll save it. So the delete is most similar to our get, where we go through all this, but then rather than doing get, we do delete. And then we just say that was an easy one. And let's debut that command to get rid of that big old JSON chunk. Sweet. Just like that. All right, let's delete a couple more. Let's get rid of foo, and let's get rid of child, and let's get rid of %2f foo. Needs to % encode the output. Okay. What else we got? What other garbage did I stick in there? Parent child. Let's make sure that works. Good. All right. And now our database is back to before I started futzing with it. Okay, we now have Hyper-B commands. I created a node function. That's what ended up happening. Which is probably... Not a node function, a node file. That's funny. Okay. And did I include in the usage? Delete, I did. And I think probably the README needs to get updated now. Yeah. Cool, let's copy and paste. Great. Boom. Okay. So these are the only two commands listed here that haven't been implemented. Hyperdrive doesn't have, at the moment, any tools for manipulating the files directly. So it doesn't have a put or a del right now, which maybe it should. Yeah, I mean, basically, if I do that, I just do the piping. So that would be good. Also, you know, make dir, rm dir, all those kinds of commands would be wise. I probably won't do that on this stream. I'm getting a little at the end of my juice. The other thing that we're going to need is some generic seeding functions, and I'm kind of inclined to do that where, like, you just spawn the command and it'll seed as long as the command is going, so just like one at a time. Maybe you could pass in a list. But I might just, I think I'm kind of hitting the end of my juice. I think I need a break, so I think I'm going to call that a stream. So, thanks for joining me. This is was a casual stream, unlike what I did yesterday, which was a little more structured. So sometimes if I like announce in a big way the streams, it'll be a little bit more of a kind of like I'm doing it to talk to y'all. But in random days like this, I'll might just do some work and put on a stream like this, and I'll just sort of let everybody know by tweeting about it, but I won't make quite as a production about it. So thanks for joining me. Hit me up on Twitter or anywhere else if you have any questions. And yeah, call it a day. Have a great weekend, everybody.